Good day, everyone, and welcome to the National Foster Care Month event, Stories from the Field, Practical Strategies for Engaging Young People virtual event.
I will now turn it over to Taffy Compain with the Children's Bureau to begin.
Thank you very much, Chris. Hello and good afternoon or good morning to all. My name is Taffy Compain and I'm the National Foster Care Specialist at the Children's Bureau. And on behalf of myself and the leadership at the Children's Bureau, I want to welcome all of you to the National Foster Care Month event, Stories from the Field, Practical Strategies for Engaging Young People. I'm really excited that we're able to bring you an amazing panel of presenters who are dedicated at the individual, peer, and systems levels to the authentic and meaningful participation and inclusion of those that are much affected by child abuse and neglect. As you know, May is National Foster Care Month, and each year we lead a campaign of awareness and public education about the children, the youth, the parents, all the families involved with foster care. We also do critical issues to improving our services to them, and we also look at ways in which all individuals and the communities can take action. This year, through the theme Foster Care is a Support to Families and Not a Substitute for Parents, we promote meaningful family engagement, support, and empowerment. Throughout this 3-year campaign dedicated to uplifting the voices of the parents and the families most touched when foster care is necessary, we have highlighted the importance of family well-being, of partnerships between birth and resource parents, collaborations with the local communities, and the parent engagement in selection of services as key factors in strengthening families. This year, we bring focus to supporting and strengthening families by looking at ways that the child welfare system and the legal community can authentically engage youth in permanency planning and support the development of meaningful connections to promote truly strengthening families. Building on what we've heard from youth in care and adults formerly in care over the past few years, permanency in their eyes is not only about the legal permanency, it's also about the relational permanency. And you'll see in here today some of the successes that are possible when we intentionally build supportive relationships with those that we serve. We also take this time to recognize the many individuals that have made a personal or professional commitment, or both, to improving the circumstances of these families so that they're truly supported in a transition from crisis to resiliency. From relatives, foster parents, child welfare professionals, courts, attorneys, countless service providers. There are just so many people that give of themselves every day to change the individual and collective narrative about families in need of temporary assistance. And that includes those of you here with us today. So allow me to take a moment to sincerely thank all of you for being part of this important and sometimes difficult and often rewarding work. Before I introduce our Associate Commissioner, I want to make sure that you know that we support a dedicated website for National Foster Care Month. Chris?
Image of the National Foster Care Month website with the slogan, Empower Youth in Foster Care. At every stage, their voice matters.
The site is childwelfare.gov/foster care month, and it is full of resources, outreach materials, and supports for developing your own state and local campaigns. One of my favorite sections on the site is Reflections, Stories of Foster Care, that includes digital, audio, and narrative accounts of real experiences in foster care. I would like to ask all of you to visit the site, to listen to at least one of these stories, and to consider ways in which you may be able to use these in your own awareness and education efforts. Now I'm very excited to introduce Aisha Schomburg, the Children's Bureau new Associate Commissioner. Associate Commissioner Schomburg, who has a bar admission in both the states of New York and New Jersey, received her BA from the University of Virginia and her MA from New York University and her JD from New York Law School. Commissioner Schomburg joined the Biden administration in March of 2021 after serving as the Senior Administrator for Program Oversight for New York City's Administration for Children's Services. There she worked collaboratively with agency leaders to develop and implement plans for the operational infrastructure of ACS, while also developing and coordinating comprehensive organizational capacity building strategies across the programs. Unfortunately, she's not able to be with us live today, but she did record a very special message, and we welcome you to hear that now.
Hello, my name is Asia Schomburg, and I'm the new Associate Commissioner of the Children's Bureau. I'm excited that we're all here celebrating National Foster Care Month. My first job in child welfare was as Director of Parent Recruitment in New York City. It was there that I learned so much about the role of a good foster parent and the importance of the It Takes a Village approach to supporting children. I have a close friend who grew up in foster care. A few months ago, her mom passed away, and I attended the homegoing service. Her mother had mental health issues which prevented her from being able to fully parent my friend and her siblings. It was a sad occasion, but there was so much that was so inspiring about it. My friend and her siblings were all together in the same place for the first time in a long time. And you know who else was there? Their former foster mom. At the service, they honored their mother and implored all of us there to have compassion for people with mental health issues. They also honored their former foster mom. They told stories about how supportive their foster mom was of their mom and how she encouraged their mother and always let her mother come and see them whenever she wanted to come, even if there was no official visit planned. When I think of my friend and her siblings, I think of how fortunate they were to have been loved so much by their mom and their foster mom. And after all these years, their foster mom was still there. She had driven many miles just to be there for them during a time of grief. In my mind, foster care works best when foster parents act as extended family members and honor their commitment to support the whole family. National Foster Care Month provides an opportunity to bring awareness to the public about the families touched by the foster care system. Now, ideally, foster care is temporary, and even temporarily, every child and young person deserves to be part of a safe, supportive, and loving family. What does safe, supportive, and loving mean? We have to ask the children, youth, and parents who have been impacted by the system. We have to ask them and listen to their answers, and we have to be unafraid to let them lead us to the answers we need to make the child welfare system better. I've been in this position for 2 months, and I've spoken with many youth and parents. And together, they're helping me develop a plan for how I will continuously lift and include the voices of youth and parents during my tenure. We must also take time to reflect on how young people in foster care have been particularly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. To support the immediate needs of youth in foster care, this administration has authorized a specific program to support youth. It's called Supporting Foster Youth and Families Through the Pandemic Act. This law provides additional flexibility and support for youth aging out of foster care and allows them to access critical services to help them stay in school or participate in a job training program, pay the bills, and hopefully make an easier transition to adulthood. When I was working in New York City, it became very clear, very fast, how important it was to get cash in the hands of youth and families during the pandemic. While National Foster Care Month is a time to celebrate, it's also a time to talk about how we transform the system. How do we move forward differently? Well, we're focusing on primary prevention and equity for all families. What does that mean? It means we're focused on keeping families away from the child welfare system. If we're doing the right thing, that number of 423,000 youth in care will consistently decrease. It also means that when a family needs support, they're able to get what they need without system involvement. It means addressing the inequities that prevent families from accessing the help they need without system involvement. And it means addressing the racism and bias, both conscious and unconscious, that we know leads to the disproportionate numbers of Black and brown children in the system. And it also means addressing the disparate outcomes for Black and brown youth who may age out of care. I want to close by acknowledging the accomplishments of young people who have managed to thrive as successful adults despite the hardships that come with having experienced foster care. I want to acknowledge the child welfare professionals who made it a priority to keep children with their extended family whenever it was possible. I want to acknowledge the community organizations that support families within their communities and close to home. And I want to acknowledge and celebrate the parents who encourage each other and work together to keep our children safe and loved. Thank you for all that you do.
All right, well, Commissioner Schomburg brings an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience and really a sincere personal commitment to leading improving child welfare policy and practice. And I really do encourage you to find other opportunities to hear from her. What I'd like to do now is give you some brief background on our very exciting upcoming presenters. And they're also going to show themselves on the screen so that you could put the face with the name. So we're going to hear from Dr. Jamie Bennett, who has a decade of experience in direct practice, training, and consulting for organizations who aim to improve outcomes for young adults leaving foster care. She holds a doctorate in educational program development, a bachelor's and master's degree in social work, and a coaching certification through the International Coaching Federation. Dr. Bennett is the executive director of Cetera, a nonprofit in St. Petersburg, Florida, that aims to increase educational and housing supports for young adults leaving foster care in the Tampa Bay region. As an alumna of the foster care system, Dr. Bennett is passionate about improving outcomes for young adults who have experience in the system. We'll also be hearing from Ashley Menifee. She's a senior program manager at the Youth Support Partner Unit, where she has been since 2009, and which is part of Allegheny County's Department of Human Services in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ashley oversees the staff at the unit while implementing innovative and strategic ideas on how to keep the country's transition-age youth supported and advocated for, and also developing the young professionals who support the youth who were once recipients of those services themselves. Ashley has worked with youth at Ward Home, the independent living program that she grew up in. Talk about pay it forward. She has facilitated work groups as an independent contractor with teen girls, focusing on self-esteem and healthy relationships, while also teaching teenagers HIV/AIDS as well as STD awareness, prevention and education with Macedonia Faith in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We will also be hearing from Jacqueline Cuff, and she's a youth support partner in the Youth Support Partner Unit of Allegheny County. Jacqueline uses her previous experience in the foster care system to mentor and inspire youth who are now where she once was. Jacqueline's systems experience was unstable, and it left her feeling as if she had no voice. Now, as a youth support partner, Jacqueline focuses on the voice of the youth, helping the young advocate for themselves. The opportunity to work on goals and reach the success of the youth has also impacted her own personal growth. Jacqueline aspires to continue using her experience to positively impact more youth that are affected by this system. And I'm going to also introduce to you Guadalupe Ortiz-Tovar, or Lupe, whom I've had the pleasure and the honor of watching blossom both personally and in her chosen profession. She has over 15 years of experience in the area of child welfare, leadership development, recruitment, training, youth and adult partnerships, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and in supporting the engagement of those with lived experience within program development and implementation. She's currently the National Youth and Transition Database, or NYTD manager, for the JBS International Child Welfare Compliance Reviews team, where she oversees a national pool of 32 consultants that are aged 18 through 26. We've got an incredible group of presenters, and I'm going to turn it over to them now.
Image showing the text, Activate, Transformational Relationships with speaker Dr. Jamie Bennett's name and email address at the bottom.
Thank you so much, Taffy. It's a pleasure to be joining all of you and to present today with some phenomenal colleagues in recognition of National Foster Care Month. Today I'd like to share some thoughts and strategies related to transformational relationships. To kick us off, I'd like to invite everybody to listen to a story from an amazing woman, mom, and advocate in Arizona named Stephanie and her equally amazing case manager, Kim. And as you're listening, I'd like to invite you to observe the big things and the little things that have created a meaningful relationship between Stephanie and Kim.
I am Stephanie. I am a mother, wife, sister, advocate. The list could go on. In all of these roles, I've needed guidance. During my time in foster care, so many people have touched my life that weren't my cup of tea. But then we met Kim when she took on my brother's case which wasn't easy. It was more than just taking on 4 siblings. We had so many people in our lives, including my husband, my kids, and what felt like hundreds of people involved with our family. But Kim embraced all of our emotions. Nothing felt forced, she didn't take sides, and she took the time to understand us. I knew she was always a phone call away for any questions or concerns. One important aha moment for me was when I was in a car accident with my son and brothers. She was the first person we called and took us to the hospital. That's when I knew she really cared. That was so powerful to me because I have experienced life or death situations where nobody called us, and the people who were supposed to be there weren't. I could trust her to help all of us process emotions, think about boundaries, and instead of telling me what to do, she supports me to figure out and make the best decisions for me in any given moment as a young adult. As I grew into different roles from a sister, a youth, teen mom, an advocate, to a wife, an adoptive mother, she saw me. She was always there listening and helping me through it all. And even though some of our cases are closed with her, she is still here. In the middle of our perfectly imperfect relationships, every youth in care deserves someone like her.
Kim's story.
To me, being able to truly see someone means being able to see them holistically, not just as a foster youth. When I met Stephanie, she was navigating roles as a woman of color, a young person, a mother, a sister, a foster care alumni, and an advocate, which I had to understand and believe in to really get to know her. I have seen her grow and learn along the way. We learned from each other in unexpected ways too. Stephanie and I became parents around the same time. She was already an experienced mother, and this was my first child. I recognized I wasn't the expert in the situation and learned many things during my interactions with Stephanie and her family. Maintaining relationships is hard, but worth the effort. The relationships I have built with Stephanie and her family over the last 7 years have been valuable, motivating, and reinforced the important impact that relationships and just showing up have on all of us. I didn't realize that my showing up for Stephanie and her family when they were in an accident and needed help was so impactful. I didn't know that they didn't have someone to count on before when a similar and even more serious situation had occurred. If Stephanie and her siblings need advice or just someone to vent to, I want to always just be a phone call away. Through it all, I have been able to see Stephanie take her personal experiences being in foster care and help advocate to make change and to help others to have a voice. I know Stephanie will continue to make an impact in the lives of other youth and their families. Even though I am no longer her caseworker, I hope to carry on our relationship so that I can continue to celebrate her successes and hope that in some small way I was a part of that. I know she has definitely been a part of my journey as a social worker and has contributed to my own personal growth.
This product was created by the Capacity Building Center for States under contract number HHSP 233-201-500071I, funded by the Children's Bureau, Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
So today, I'd like to talk about transformational relationships with you all. Transformational relationships, by definition, are those that are powerful enough to create a positive impact on the people who are included in them.
The 8 transformational relationships in Activate are autonomy, consistency, trust, interdependence, validate, authentic, time, expertise.
I'm going to share with you 8 key strategies today for activating transformational relationships with young people from foster care. And so to get us started, I'd like to talk about A for autonomy. Autonomy refers to the ability to act in agency of oneself, which is often diminished among youth from foster care, both in their opportunities to experience typical developmental activities, but also in their opportunity to have voice and choice in the decisions that impact their lives. One major way that we can support autonomy is by recognizing the differences between supporting and telling. Youth indicate that autonomy is supported when adults avoid telling them what to do and instead support them to discover solutions and directions for action based on what feels right for the youth. In the video that we just watched, Stephanie says about Kim, instead of telling me what to do, she supports me to make my own decisions. This is autonomy in action. C is for consistency. The first way that we can be consistent is probably one that you have already thought about and hopefully are already doing in your work, which is by being reliable. In action, being reliable looks like showing up, keeping your word, offering support in an ongoing way that is predictable. The second way we can be consistent is by practicing ongoing self-reflection that helps us hold positive narratives and beliefs that influence our actions when we are interacting with young people. Examining the narratives we hold about young people helps us intentionally keep an asset-based approach, one that holds youth in an unconditional positive regard. Transformational relationships with youth require trust. We know from research that youth from foster care may not trust adults quickly or as easily as they might if they hadn't been in foster care, which makes a lot of sense. We also know from research that trust is built over time, and it happens in small moments. And what has showed up in addition to this in my research, and was also named by Stephanie and Kim in their audio story when they were referring to being in a car accident, when Stephanie and her family were in a car accident, is that pivotal moments also matter. Big moments when youth take a risk and reach out during crisis or emergencies, and then we show up to support them, that creates trust. We cannot have transformational relationships without it. And to quote Stephen Covey, one of my favorite quotes, relationships move at the speed of trust. I is for interdependence. We think about activating transformational relationships. Interdependent relationships are those that are mutually beneficial. In interdependent relationships, both people in the relationship are open to learning and understand that they can learn from one another. In Stephanie and Kim's story, Kim shared how Stephanie taught her about parenting. This is an indication of an interdependent relationship. Youth can learn from us, and we can always learn from youth. V, in activating transformational relationships, is for validate. Validating youth looks like believing their perspectives and believing the information that they share with us. I encourage everyone to take some time to learn about the idea of self-protective behaviors. When we think about self-protective behaviors, we think about behaviors that supported the youth in surviving and being resilient during adversity that they have experienced. Self-protective behaviors such as distancing from supportive relationships and avoiding help-seeking can feel frustrating in relationships, but acknowledging and validating these behaviors as self-protective and normalizing them as necessary to survive can remove stigma that individuals, organizations, and systems hold about youth and families and the way that they show up. It can also reshape internal narratives youth may hold as a result of being othered or growing up in systems of oppression and marginalization. Activating the transformational relationship with youth means always receiving youth, no matter how they show up. It means validating, not pathologizing, self-protective behaviors and openly discussing how they are and are not currently serving the youth in this moment. Transformational relationships are authentic. Authenticity, of course, includes being holistic and taking a whole person approach. Youth are not only their foster care experiences, they are humans with lots of experiences, skills, and assets that make them who they are today. Authenticity also includes hanging in and hanging out, a term that I love that was named by the relational child and youth care approach. Hanging in during tough times, like that car accident, and then hanging out in the good times. Making sure we're doing both helps us create authentic relationships. In working with youth, we must recognize the time that it takes for youth to engage in transformational relationships. Stephanie shared in her story that it was important that Kim took time to get to know her and her family. In some of my research, I had a youth share with me that time was the difference between asking for transactional help and engaging in support through an ongoing relationship with a supportive adult. Adults supporting youth must be persistent and not take it personally when self-protective habits impact the pace at which youth move from transactional help to transformational engagement in our relationships with them. And then finally, it is critical that we acknowledge lived experience as expertise. Relationship-centered approaches, such as trying to create transformational relationships, value people who are closest in proximity to the challenges as the experts of what solutions are needed. Therefore, when we activate transformational relationships with youth, it requires us valuing them as experts of their lives, of their goals, of the needs and wants they have, and also valuing them as experts in how the system can be improved. By holding a narrative that young people are experts that we can learn from, we create opportunities to share power. When we share power, we join in partnership with young people, and in partnership, we can always go further than we will ever go alone. So why should we focus on activating transformational relationships with these ingredients that can help us develop these types of relationships? According to the Center for the Study of Social Policy, transformational relationships increase mattering, which is the sense that you matter to other people. Mattering is key to feeling a sense of belonging, which is known to be a contributing factor to well-being. Transformational relationships also increase a youth's sense of agency and hope, which leads to higher levels of confidence in following their goals and an increased ability to self-regulate, which contributes to learning and to well-being.
Every success story is a relationship story. Peter Thompson.
And so to close out, I'd like to share a quote from a great colleague of mine, Peter Thompson, who is in Michigan, which reminds me every day, I look at this quote every day, and it reminds me that relationships are at the center of our work. They are at the center of transformational work. And with that, I am pleased to hand it over to Ashley Menefee. Thank you.
The image on the screen displays Youth Support Partner Unit, Capacity Building Center for States.
Well, thank you, Jamie. You did a phenomenal job. Again, my name is Ashley Menefee, and I am here this afternoon to tell you a little about the Youth Support Partner Unit. In short, we will say YSP today. I am very proud to let you know that I am one of the first youth support partners from Allegheny County that was first hired in 2009. I'm very passionate about what we do, and it's probably because of the very fiber and being of who I am. I come from a very long line of addiction, of untreated mental health. I come from being a child in foster care and child welfare. I was also involved in juvenile probation as a kid, and I lived in several different congregate care settings. When I was only 18 years old, I had 3-year-old twin girls whenever I first began at the YSP unit, and I had no idea how life-changing this opportunity to be a peer mentor would be for me and the people that I worked with in the last 12 years. So the Youth Support Partner Unit was created in the Department of Human Services after some amazing people in Allegheny County, including our former director, Mark Cherna, and our current Deputy Director of Children, Youth, and Families, Jackie Hoover, recognize that if you really want families to be successful, whether they are dealing with serious mental health issues or youth in foster care, the youth and family need to be active members on the team. They need to be sharing their voice and their goals to help guide the work whenever possible.
Youth Support Partner Unit Timeline 2002 SAMHSA Awards DHS Funding Grant Partnership for Youth Transition PYT 2003 First Youth Support Specialist hired under PYT 2008 4 Youth Support Partners YSPs hired High Fidelity Wraparound Process Clients referred from Behavioral Health Services. 2009, YSP unit is established. 2021, the YSP unit today, more than 20 YSPs, supervisors, managers, coordinators, and more, serving hundreds of you from across all DHS system.
The Youth Support Partner role was established as part of the High Fidelity Wraparound process. This model showed that a youth peer support could help a young person gain not only self-advocacy, but also how having someone share their own personal experience while also providing real peer advice could be beyond beneficial for not just the youth, but the team members as well, so that they can better listen and understand the youth. When you are youth involved with any single system or multiple systems, you need someone committed that is going to sit down, take the time, explain things, make sure you understand acronyms, make sure you understand the terms that are being said, make sure that you know as a kid what is being planned for your life, and so that you can also learn to be the best advocate for yourself and for your future. Now, the best way to give you further insight on our program today is to hear from one of our very own youth support partners, Jaslyn Cupp, and we are going to do a short interview today during this presentation. Hi, Jazz.
Hi, Ashley. How are you?
Good. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So, Jazz, we know you are here today as a youth support partner with personal lived experience. Can you tell us a little more about that?
A little more about my personal lived experience. I was in kinship care with my grandmother for the first 13 years of my life due to an addiction that my mom was fighting. After about 13 years, my mom did everything that was expected of her, which reunited the both of us, and it's still an ongoing journey for the both of us.
What motivated you to be a YSP?
What motivated me to become a YSP is just wanting to give back and give the youth something that I wish that I had when I was involved in the system.
Since we are talking with people from all over the country who are working with youth in foster care, do you have any advice for them from your own experience as a former youth in foster care or as a YSP?
From my own experience, the advice I can give is to be a caring, consistent person in a youth life. All youth wants to be supported by caring people. Consistency can show empathy and patience. Youth in foster care have a way of pushing others away, so it's important that you show the youth that they are worth fighting for by sticking around even when things get difficult. Be a genuine person, help the youth understand what exactly is coming, allow the youth to speak their truth, and advocate for themselves. Having a peer that has shared similar lived experience and overcame the same challenges can be better support and advocate for a youth in pain.
I think that's great advice, Jaslyn.
Thank you.
Based on your experience and what you've learned from your peers, what does a successful mentor relationship look like with a youth?
Based off what I've learned from my peers at the unit, you know that the mentor relationship with the youth is successful when the youth can trust you enough to help and support them. At the YSP unit, our motto is to do for, do with, and cheer on. With my youth, I can do something for them. This could be as simple as gathering information to schedule an appointment, them trusting me enough to show them what to do, and then trusting me to do it with them, and then they transition to do it for themselves and cheering them on. It lets me know that the process alone is a very good way to have a successful relationship.
Can you speak to how the YSP unit helps you to do this work?
The YSP unit helps me do this work by providing some mandatory and optional training. There's mandated reporter training, a strength-based family worker training with the earned college credits. We spend time doing behavior rehearsals, which is practices of situations that may occur so that we can be more prepared when dealing with the situation. Doing this work can sometimes be triggering, dealing with families and trauma that remind us of our own past experiences. The unit has a professional development and advancement manager who supports our professional and personal goals and also provides us with an individual coaching plan known as the ICP. The unit also holds team meetings where we come together to laugh, encourage, and support one another. I've been with the unit for about 7 months, and not only has the unit helped me grow professionally, but personally as well.
Great. Jasmine, can you share an example of what a day looks like as a YSP?
My day as a YSP never looks the same. I contact all of my youth. Right now, I have about 13 youth. When I make contact, it's usually just to schedule a visit. The visits aren't always at home. We do outings such as meeting at parks or the mall. We spend time engaging in building that rapport so I can better support them as a YSP. I contact their team members, which can be their caseworkers, probation officers, people like that, to keep them updated on my contact with the youth. I attend team meetings and court hearings, which can be challenging during the time with everything being virtually. Once making contact with them, I have to document everything, and that's probably the most time-consuming part of my day. I have behavior rehearsals once a week for 2 hours, and I meet with my supervisor. And sometimes an unexpected situation could occur. For example, I've had incidents where technically my shift can start from 9 to 5 p.m., and I've had incidents where a youth can go missing towards the end of my shift, not being able to locate them, and I've had people reach out to me to try to get me to reach out to them. So spending that time to contact the youth and make that contact to make sure that they're safe is something that is thrown at me, but I have to do it because at the end of the day, their safety is my number one concern.
That sounds like a lot, and I'm sure I know you manage it very well. We're glad to have you, Jazz. Can you share today with the attendees how you take care of yourself while you are trying to help the youth who may be currently experiencing trauma?
I take care of myself by creating and sticking to boundaries, not allowing myself to become burnt out of the work and taking a break when it's needed, allowing myself to be vulnerable but aware, using our wellness manager to create a self-care plan, and using supervisors and YSPs as extra support. Excuse me.
And I think that is the end of our interview. If we could go back to the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Individual level. What should youth gain? Understand how to use system supports. Participate in recommended services. Understand the consequences of their own actions. Make healthier decisions. Have a healthier self-identity. And practice self-care. Accomplish goals that are important to them. Have a natural support network they can trust and rely on once support ends, and have a healthy social life with defined boundaries.
So, what you see today, I'm going to explain a little bit more in depth. So, the intended effect of working with the YSP is that youth will gain skills in the 5 areas on this slide so that they can experience successful outcomes. Since we started the YSP unit back in 2009, we have continually evolved with how we measure success of our program. Primarily, we relied on anecdotal evidence and are excited about finally launching some new quantitative measures. We have created career pathways for more than 160 young people who are alumni of the child serving system who were once YSPs. We have given young people with a high school diploma or a GED the chance to be employed in a full-time and salary position with benefits that is focused on not just helping youth who are currently in care, but also in building the YSP's personal skills and opportunities so that they can break some of the cycles and barriers that they may come from, while also preparing them for the next career opportunity path that they may choose to pursue. Since this isn't a job that lasts forever, we are very proud of all the careers our YSPs have gone on to pursue, whether that was internally at the YSP unit, DHS, or beyond. We have hired young adults who are former recipients of the YSP unit to become YSPs. More than a dozen of our former youth came back to the YSP unit to become YSPs ourselves, which to me is a huge sign of success. We've overcome major skepticism from professionals in our community by consistently being a key connection to helping team members hear and understand the youth and seeing them for who they actually are and not just what they read on a referral or a court order or whatever documentation that they may have. YSPs have become a very well-respected and frequently requested partner for young people across all the systems in Allegheny County. The family court judges often call upon YSPs to assist with youth whenever the youth advocate for themselves and for what they want or what the goals they have for themselves or whenever they're in the courtroom. The family court judges also request the YSPs to be on work groups and panels to ensure that the youth voice is considered and heard. We have worked with more than 2,500 young people, and by the time they were transitioning from the YSP unit, the vast majority of these youth have achieved goals they set for themselves and have been helped on their journey in a very positive way. While our service is voluntary, we do have a 95% acceptance rate by the youth after they meet a YSP. We listen to our youth on what they want, what they need, and this helps us advocate for them as individuals and also for system change. We are currently launching a new method to gather feedback from our youth, and thanks to a working group of young people, we are calling it a Spotlight on Success. And this is a focus on the successes of the youth while they work with the YSP. We are excited to finally have captured quantitative data that will be able to give us more measurable outcomes to be able to share with you. And we know we'll shortly have great successes to report after that. So as you can see here, here's our contact information.
Contact us. Website about the YSP unit. Email dhs-yspadmin@alleghenycounty.us. Phone 412-442-8977. Links for later. Making of a YSP. Speak Out. DHS website.
Please feel free to contact with any questions, any clarification. And now I'm pleased to pass it over to Lupe. She seems to be very popular in this chat, so I think a lot of people are looking forward to hearing from her.
Thank you, Ashley.
Slide titled National Youth and Transition Database shows 4 images of NYTD consultants.
Can I get a thumbs up or a chat if you guys can hear and see me? Wonderful, thank you. Hi, everybody. I see my colleagues from JBS on the line, from Foster Care Alumni of America, from Arizona. Hi, everybody. I just want to first say hello and thank you to the committee for inviting me back to speak with you all today. I think my camera's on now. And Taffy reminded me the other day that it's been 13 years since the last time that I had the opportunity to speak on this platform for National Foster Care Month. And just to provide, that's Sparky, but just to provide a little background, I was an intern 11 years ago when I participated at that National Foster Care Month committee. It was more like a PSA, and it was at Hunter College. And I was so nervous. I hadn't found my voice fully yet. I had the support of the internship through Foster Club, and I just remember how nervous I was. And so I'm here today as a manager of the National Youth and Transition Database through JBS International. We're a federal contractor. But I wanted to share both because none of us gets to where we are without a path and opportunity and people who invest in our professional development. And I have a lot of gratitude for a lot of those organizations and the people who are on the line today. So feel free to share in the comment if we have worked together in the past, in what capacity that was. because I think that only brings richness to the array of opportunities that continue to need to be available for those with lived experience in the systems that we serve. I'm going to breathe through this. I feel a little nervous. I'm representing the wonderful colleagues that you see on the PowerPoint, and they are the reason why I am privileged to do the work that I do today, and so I wanted to bring them along with me. And through our work with the National Youth in Transition Database Program, we've had, in the last 7 years, 75 consultants with phenomenal professional resumes and portfolios, who some of them are in their PhD programs, raising wonderful families, have their own nonprofits, are working on a state level, are my colleagues, and we self-identify with having shared lived experience in the systems we serve, whatever that means to them. It can be anywhere from foster care to congregate care to adoption to kinship care, tribal care, and everything in between. And if you spent 1 hour in any of those systems, then you can relate to the passion that comes when engaging with those with lived experience and the expertise that they offer in the work that they provide for many of our organizations. And I would not have my job if they didn't apply to be consultants, if they didn't train very hard, 2.5-day weekend training, 8 hours long, if they didn't prepare with us being on 3-month planning calls, if they didn't arrive to the airport on time and, show up ready, and they do every time. Some of my mentors in my own career have told me that you're doing something right when you have you worked yourself out of a job for hiring these amazing, well-qualified, overqualified folks with lived experience. And so I do want to give a shout out to organizations who have invested in my path in the past, from state youth advisory boards in Arizona when I was 14, as early as 14, so I was trying to calculate it. But considering I'm closer to 40 now, those numbers are getting a little bigger. So I have about 24 years of experience in the leadership space, starting with the Arizona Youth Advisory Board, through Casey Family Programs, through foster clubs internship, through my university, Arizona State University, and the variety of opportunities that they have there. And then through CASA, court-appointed special advocates, being on their curriculum development committee, and then for folks who ask me to apply for jobs. And that transition is what I want to focus on today in terms of strategies on how to meaningfully engage those with lived experience in your programs. And if you belong to any of the organizations that I shared, please put it in the chat. I mean, there's Foster Care Alumni of America, there's CCAI. Please spell out the acronyms for me in the chat, folks. I see you all here. Foster Youth in Action. I want to uplift those because our consultant opportunities, the young people that apply for that, and old people, respectfully, they come with a legacy of experiences before they sit on our teams. And I never want folks to discredit that that we are more than our lived experience. That is really one small part of our portfolio, but it is definitely a hard-earned superpower, I often say. But for us, our Knighted reviewers are the glitter glue to our work, and I just, I'm an auntie and a godmom, so that analogy works for me. And so I just want to say that to see beyond the lived experience, because we have a responsibility to maximize the time that we get to partner and collaborate with folks with lived experience. And even though, because of our lived experience, transitions have often translated as being something very hard to process, or if you're able to process it at all, that there's a responsibility to celebrate their transitions in life when, for example, they meet the age of majority for a lot of our opportunities. So how do we celebrate those moments and milestones that they achieve in their career? So I just wanted to set the personal stage before I get into the work side of my presentation, and shout out my colleagues who are all over this PowerPoint slide. If we can go to the next slide.
The states that have been reviewed slide shows a map of the United States with states reviewed marked by stars: Oregon, Washington, Utah, Arizona, North Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Texas, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Indiana, Tennessee, Alabama, West Virginia, Virginia, South Carolina, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Delaware.
I also want to bring you all closer to in the room as well. Following, and Miguel Vieira probably recognizes this PowerPoint slide. I thought it as a really great representation of, it started with him, and he has coached me along the way in my career. And I think it's a great representation of states that have already invested in partnering with young people and old people with lived experience to be at the table with them when conducting Knighted reviews or any other compliance reviews. The overall CQI efforts, continuous quality improvement efforts. So to the states with the stars, it's been a pleasure partnering with you all, and our Knighted reviewers. We often celebrate like the anniversaries of when we were there, and due to the pandemic, we did a lot of that because we missed being on the road with you all. I do want to highlight that the states we haven't visited yet, that there is a big opportunity there for you all to start now, or maybe you're already ahead of the curve in identifying those with lived experience that you want to invite to the table and train alongside your staff on how to support your Knighted efforts or other efforts that you all are doing in support of your PIPs and other items and priorities that your state has, especially around Division X and supporting our young people with pandemic relief in the short time that we have. Young people know young people, and I learned that early on, and they really are the liaisons to bringing those young people who are in need right now closer to those services, and they also are able to connect quicker to young people because of that shared experience, that oftentimes when we're in the same room, we don't even have to bring it up. And one example I can bring is we've all been through this pandemic, and when we're having conversations with each other, we don't have to ask more than that, because the feelings of what we've all experienced this last year and a half, we can resonate with as a human race globally, and within the community of those with lived experience, that same commonality, that common thread is there as well. And I want to share that because if we go to the next slide.
Table shows NYTD Engagement Opportunities Federal NYTD Review Team. NYTD Reviewer. Recruit year-round. Ages 18 through 26. Requirements on CB website. Train annually. Dual expertise. Serve on the Federal NYTD Review Team. Advise on project work, peer support. NYTD Support Coach. Experienced NYTD reviewers. Ages 18 through 26 plus. Elevated role within the NYTD reviewer pool. Support newer NYTD reviewers. Serve on the Federal NYTD Review Team. Advise on project work. State NYTD Team and Activities State Youth Ambassadors. Experienced young people. NYTD State Team Member. Participation supported by the state. For example, lodging, per diem, materials, meals, etc. TA Youth Engagement Calls, pre-on-site phase. Youth Meetup. Young People Focus Group, 10 to 15 young people, more if the state can accommodate. Youth people serve through Chaffee-funded programs. Participate in a 1-hour focus group. Participation, meals, and logistics supported by the state. Facilitated by federal NYTD reviewers. Red flag support. Other leadership opportunities. State NYTD team and activities. State youth ambassadors.
We can really showcase the different levels of opportunities there are to engage young people in programs or any opportunities that you have. These are the ones that, along with my team at JBS, that we work with. And what we have learned from our NYTD reviewers is they don't always have to lead with their lived experience. It can inform the lens and the hat that they wear while conducting the work. And we are really in ownership of how, for example, we introduce ourselves when we enter a room or when we're in a meeting. But that takes practice, especially in a system that really asks you to share your story over and over again. It kind of becomes automatic sometimes, and in my work in the last 15 years, I have found it to be really rewarding to look through resumes with young people and show them all of the things they've accomplished and remind them or be a mirror for them to see that they belong in every room where the work is being done. And they get to choose. They have the power to choose which opportunities they want to be a part of. And within NYTD, I wanted to bring some concrete examples. Young people can be a part of a focus group on the state side, and it's protected space facilitated by our NYTD reviewers to really listen and hear what's going on with them and use that to inform the feds on what young people are experiencing and seeing in their day-to-day lives. Our support coaches have been trained multiple times and are really there to train the next generation of NYTD reviewers and other leaders. So creating near-peer opportunities like that is super important. Having pay raises that come with those types of opportunities is also valuable. So always having a line item for consultant engagement is super helpful for states. JP dollars can be utilized for that and other incentives depending on what the young person's preference is or what the job responsibilities are. Most states have had state youth ambassadors, which is similar to a NYTD reviewer, but from the state side. JBS in our next 5 years will be growing, supporting states in this area, and we look forward to that. So stay tuned. We have many NYTD reviewers who are in the process, in the creative process with us, in the brainstorming process with us as well. From when it's literally a brainstorm, we brainstorm together, we work it out together until a final product and completion. And And there's also value in that, and it's a great resume builder as well. And so I just wanted to share some of that as well. I want to check with our team to see how I'm doing on time. Okay, so some specific strategies that have helped us is I want to make sure that I get these out to you all because we've learned throughout the process, and growing pains are not bad. They're good, and we evolve with the direct feedback of our consultants, and we actually thrive in that environment. What I would say is plan ahead and plan now, and it's never too late to start. To have the variety of opportunities depending on the comfort level of young people, to really spend a lot of time on the preparation part of your programs. And recruitment should be ongoing. In our space, we never just have one voice at the table. Foster care experience is not a monolith. No one experience is the same. With my analogy earlier around the pandemic, none of our experiences were the same, even though the circumstance was the same. And so just keeping that in mind, one tip that we provide practice for with our consultants is to, if you have a personal thought that you want to uplift at the table, but you don't want to access that part of your story, think of it in a global way. How can this thought or tip be globalized to the broader foster care experience or whatever system we are talking about at the moment? And that has been helpful to some of our reviewers and other folks that I mentor and coach as well. Sometimes practicing how to start a sentence where it doesn't start with when I was in foster care, but really transitioning to young people in this state have shared, so that type of thing. And strategic sharing does a really good job of kind of the basic training on how to do that. When it is task specific, you may want to do professional sharing or NYTD sharing, and tips and prompts for that have been really helpful. We also hold space for debriefs when our NYTD reviewers are reviewing case records of young people who are in foster care today, because no matter how removed you are from the experience, or for social workers who've been in the field for decades on decades, secondary trauma is real, feelings are real, and they can come up and they're natural, and so we want to allow the space to feel and process that, to pivot when you need to, take space when you need to. It's really valuable information that we're reading, and it is someone's life, and I think that our NYTD reviewers have really rooted that in our work, especially during, and the feds have built that into the process as well. Daily debriefs and more if needed. And they typically are all needed, but not all for the heavy conversations. Sometimes it's like providing on-site TA, technical assistance, or tips on the spot, and really brainstorming about how can we move this work forward so it's centered in the experiences of young people and families. Another one would be staying flexible with your programs. If you try something out and it doesn't work, ask those who you're hiring to do that, what feedback or ideas that they have. Oftentimes they're thinking of things that we haven't thought of because we're so in the weeds of the work daily, and that's been really valuable for us as well. And apologize when mistakes are made, because they do happen, whether it be with something like pronouncing someone's name wrong, or forgetting someone's pronouns, or forgetting to ask someone how they're doing. You know, we're growing together, and as a team, working with those with lived experience, if you apologize and say, I'm growing with you, right? I've had the privilege and honor of living life with our NYTD reviewers and other young people that I mentor and coach, and I don't always get it right. And when I don't, I really look to them for the guidance and to lead me into what the next steps are. My other thing is to provide opportunities for peer-to-peer support and network opportunities. Social capital is a luxury for young people in foster care. It's not something that they have had the opportunity to build, especially if they've had multiple moves the older they get, or any move. It's hard to keep relationships when you've been moved around so much. So any space that we can provide for those with lived experience to get to know each other outside of work. We've had youth meetups the day before work actually happens, where people can meet up and, you know, in a safe space under this type of work. And for our NYTD reviewers, you know, we give free time. We try to stick to normal work hours when we're on site and go out and do things in the states that we're in. Alabama treated us really well. I saw Alabama in there earlier. Maine took me to Stephen King's house, like, you know, so it's where Catherine Heath is really good at the Children's Bureau with, like, experiencing what the state has to offer, you know. Young people are sometimes in the mode of, let's get the work done, let's get the work done, you know, that they haven't had the space to have fun and stretch out and be curious. And so we also want to uplift opportunities like that too. And I did want to say that my kind of ending point is that our lived experience, it doesn't expire. Really, it's the opportunities that are available or allotted for those with lived experience that expire. And we're missing out on such a wealth of knowledge if when young people transition from our opportunities because of the age requirement or life circumstances, that we don't reassure them that their lived experience is valuable always, even outside of this opportunity that they've contracted with. And I'm thankful for the team that I work on, because we've thought through how to capture some of that historical knowledge. And I utilize the NYTD opportunity because some of our NYTD reviewers have been a part of it from day one, which means they have more experience with NYTD reviews than many professionals in the field. So how do we protect that knowledge and nurture that knowledge? And it's by hiring them as experts in that space and compensating them for that expertise that they bring to the table and learning from them. And that has been the most rewarding thing for me along my journey of being a manager now of 32 amazing professionals from across the country who cover every Children's Bureau region, every demographic, every scope of diversity that you can think of, and truly reflect the child welfare system and how it looks today. And I just look forward to the next 13 years, Taffy, on what will happen. So I would like to pass it back. Oh, if you can go to the next slide.
Slide shows the NYTD team email address, cw@jbinternational.com, and Lupe's email address, 1TOVAR@jbsinternational.com.
This is how you can get a hold of us. And we need great directors to support managers who are kind of radical in their thought process like me. And I totally value the space that I'm able to work in. It's been quite a journey. So thank you all for having me today and share your lived experience, because nobody has it but you, on the terms that work for you. And I'll pass it to Jennifer. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lupe, and please stay on camera, and I will invite Jamie and Ashley and Jaslyn as well to come back on camera as well for our Q&A session. So thank you to all of our presenters, first off, for all of that amazing information. You all have a wealth of knowledge and clearly champion this work. So we have a few questions that came in for some of our presenters specifically, and then some questions for all of you. But first, Jamie, a question for you. How have you seen jurisdictions practice transformational relationships? What does it take?
Thanks. That's a great question. I love that question. I think I named a few things in my session, and I think it depends on the type of work a jurisdiction is doing. I do think intentional practice models that name the intention of what should be happening between a youth and a caseworker is really critical. And so in case management settings, centering relationships instead of centering system requirements is one of the ways that we're seeing transformational relationships become the center of the work versus paperwork becoming the center of the work. I do also want to shout out the great work that's happening in post-secondary ed institutions around foster youth and transformational relationships across the country, and the way that dedicated support folks have been deployed and positioned within large organizations of post-secondary ed to provide dedicated support. A contact once a month for 30 minutes with a young adult is not, does not create a transformational relationship. We need ongoing contact, and therefore people who can be available and consistently in contact with youth is really critical. And so the way that that gets set up really does require, I think, low caseloads. It requires well-trained folks, and it requires the intention and the expectation from leadership that the work will be relationally driven.
Thank you so much, Jamie. The next question is for Ashley and Jaslyn for the YSP program. Folks were curious if you were able to share the curriculum that you use for the YSP training, potentially some scenarios.
Hi. So it's not that simple. We have been working on our program and developing it and perfecting it for the last 12 years. And there's a lot of moving pieces to it. However, we do have a lot of resources available that list a lot of the trainings that we do provide our staff with. And if there are any more specific things that anybody would like to dive into, please feel free to reach out to myself or the email that was provided on the PowerPoint. That will probably get you to me anyway.
Great, thank you so much. So a question for all of you, so anyone feel free to answer, or all of you. For those with lived experience listening in on this event today that may want to become more involved, how can they advocate, and who should they reach out to?
Was that for us again?
For any of you, any or all.
So I guess since I'm already unmuted, I can just say anytime there's an opportunity to hear directly from the youth, from the people who are directly receiving services, listen to them. Patiently, calmly, have an open mind, and understand that no idea is a dumb idea. We can't plan for people's lives without having them heard, or the plan is going to fail. hopefully that's helpful.
I'd like to also respond to that and name the power of social media, I think, in connecting with networks of alumni. I am connected with folks that I'm seeing both in the chat with Lupe and others through social media, just from groups. There's groups around Foster Care Alumni of America. I can't think of others off the top of my head, but there are several Facebook or LinkedIn or other types of groups in which alumni really are in network together. I would drop them in the chat if you know of any social media sites. But it is in those spaces where I have connected with other alumni who are doing work in advocacy and who can be connected to networks that young advocates may want to plug into. I would also say that the local work that's happening in communities around advocacy is a really great place to plug in. I think it can be a little bit challenging to plug into national advocacy right away, but many communities have organizations where youth groups or youth boards or youth advisory councils are present, and they're always wanting to bring on young people to join their work and join their advocacy. There's just so many skills that can be learned in joining those local organizations. And I know every local organization that I know that's doing youth advocacy, they want as many young advocates that want to participate as possible to join them. So I would definitely start local.
So I echo starting locally. I also uplift doing some of that work on your own as well. There are free resources on websites like Foster Youth in Action, Foster Club, and other spaces locally to learn those fundamental skills. There's a youth leadership toolkit, and also asking those in your state who are doing the work so that you can frame your voice and practice your voice and the themes that you want to uplift, the issues that you want to support or work alongside other people to improve. Volunteering is always good too. If you're interested in mentoring, that's also a great space. Your university may have, or school or community may also have free leadership opportunities. So try to attend some of those. Also to strengthen that inner advocacy voice, but listen to it too. Journaling helps. It could just be, writing everything down that you want to get out and then prioritizing that for yourself. Your voice is unique, and so really protect that and train that so that when you do tie that with an opportunity, that you are able to really pair those together to really improve systems change work.
Great, thank you, everybody. There was another question that came in for the YSP folks. There was a piece in your PowerPoint that stated demonstrated ability to manage lived experience, and they're wondering what resources Allegheny County DHS provides as a system to young people who may want to be YSPs, but who may also still struggle with the trauma they experienced and their lived expertise. It seems like there's support once they're employed, but what about before then, given that DHS was likely the system where their experience was gained?
So it's always different depending on what we gather during the interview phase. So for instance, if we have somebody that comes to interview that wants to be a YSP and we're able to tell that they still have a little bit of development to do personally and a little bit of healing to process through, we will do our best to connect them to different resources that are available to them. So in Allegheny County, our independent living services are available up through age 24. And with that come connections to a lot of other resources that can help professionalize, help stabilize, help a lot of different things in Allegheny County. So it really just depends on what that young person's need is. And we have this internal structure of putting candidates on maybe a 6-month hold. So if we see like they would be a great candidate, they just have some more development to do in one area or another, we'll help guide them the best way that we can. We'll keep their contact information, and then we'll have like a reminder set for in about 6 months. Let's reach back out to them, see how they're doing, and see if they're in a place that would better suit them to become a youth support partner.
Thanks, Ashley. Here is another question for any and all of you. As we know, the last year has provided some difficulties for us. So in terms of the ongoing pandemic, how has it influenced engagement with youth? Are there any lessons learned about engaging youth that should be carried when we head back into normal times?
I can start if that's cool. Well, there's a couple things. I think there was a couple of pandemics happening at one time. The murder of George Floyd happened around the time that, a little after the pandemic started, and as I said, we have a very diverse group of people that we work with, and I mean, I myself was brown in the foster care system. And it weighed heavy on me and our team, and we were getting ready to launch our training. And we really had a brainstorm of how to, if it was difficult for us to do our day-to-day work, we knew it would be difficult for our consultants as well. And we wanted to recognize the heaviness going on and the injustices going on. And so we met our consultants where they were. And our federal partners where they were, who provided us the space to have a candid conversation with our team to acknowledge all else that was going on. As I mentioned, some were parents as well. And their school schedules, everything closed down, right? And for those who have come from systems that have felt closed down always, it took people back to a space that was hard to navigate. We wanted to remind them that we are always here, whether it's work-related or personal. We provided open spaces to talk, to chat, to Instagram, to whatever people needed. People didn't have to respond with an answer. It was fine, but we just wanted them to know that we see you, we're here, we are all going through this together. And if you need a pass on a meeting, please utilize that and take care of yourself first, whatever that means to you. And so that flexibility piece that I mentioned was really activated, and our team internally met more too. And so that should always happen. I think the pandemic normalized everyone voicing their struggles, voicing their losses, voicing what they're doing to function hour by hour, day by day. And foster care is a pandemic too for young people that they often don't have a lot of control over. And so it's how do we empower our community to know what they do have control over and empower that and uplift that, but also to allow people the space to hurt and grieve and feel lost and work through that together. And we also shared opportunities for people to get therapy if they wanted, if they needed to seek out other opportunities, and be creative about what works for you, because what works for me doesn't work for everybody else. And so we included in our newsletter what people were doing, and we have some chefs, let me tell you, in our group. We have some TikTok stars in our group. Like, it was just amazing for them to uplift where they recharge. And I'll pause there.
I'd like to say yes to everything that Lupe said, like underline that. And I'll add one additional thing. I think what I noticed immediately in my work locally and nationally was the very, very precarious situation that many young people are in when it comes to meeting their basic living needs. And when a couple conferences get canceled and a layoff happens, we all of a sudden have financial crisis when it comes to housing, food, transportation, the basic needs that are that are required to live. And so I think engaging young people in a proactive way became super critical as the pandemic hit. So not waiting for young people to reach out, but instead reaching out to them and saying, do you need help with that? Do you need food? Do you need transportation? What is it that we can provide, and not have to wait for young people, or not wait for young people to come to us to ask for that. I think was just a really critical shift, and the feedback that I have heard from young people in the last year was very critical in them feeling okay and feeling safe. So I just want to underline that we should continue that the ongoing proactive outreach, and not just waiting for youth to tell us their needs.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of our presenters for your time and information. It's clear we can sit here and chat with you guys all day. I know, as Ashley, you mentioned in the resource pod, we do have some resources in the presenter bios that there is contact information, so feel free to reach out to our presenters for all of their amazing knowledge. And I realize I did not introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Marcelli. I'm the Program Area Manager for Foster Care at the Capacity Building Center for States, and I work very closely with Taffy Campaign at the Children's Bureau to support foster care and this event every year. So with that, we're just gonna kind of roll down. I wanted to share a couple of resources with folks that are available to help support the work that you do. So the first resource is the Child Welfare Information Gateway. Has a podcast that they created from foster care alumni, Making Lived Experience Matter Part 1. So please go to that website and check out this resource.
Website reads https://www.childwelfare.gov/more-tools-resources/podcast/episode-63/.
And also at the Capacity Building Center for States, you got to see one of our audio stories during Dr. Bennett's presentation this morning, and we encourage you to go to our site.
Website reads https://capacity.childwelfare.gov/states/care-permanency/foster-care-NCFM-2021/.
And take a look at all of the other ones. In these stories, youth describe how their voices were heard while in foster care, and each story is really anchored by a youth perspective and is partnered with another perspective, a caseworker, leader, attorney, or peer mentor. Adolescence is a time of massive changes that shape the trajectory of adult lives, and the youth explain how engagement at the practice, peer, and systems level, like we talked about today, gave them the support and empowerment that they needed during this critical developmental period. We've also created some resources, the Menu for Youth Engagement Guide and the Secret Sauce, a recipe for authentic, honest, and trusting relationships with youth, tip sheet and discussion guide to help build a common understanding amongst staff and stakeholders about how to engage, empower, and use youth voice in all aspects of child welfare to drive case planning and system improvement. So we've created some great resources to go along with all of the things that you heard today and the audio stories, so we please really do recommend that you guys go take a look at all of those and utilize them in your work. And finally, on behalf of Taffy and the Children's Bureau and us here at the Capacity Building Center for States, we wanted to thank you. This is National Foster Care Month. All of you listening on the phone have a role to play in helping children and families, and so we want to acknowledge you all during this time as well.